very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you folks who are dialing in from afar. My name is Naveed Jafari. I'm the VP of Marketing at PeerNova. Today, I'm extremely excited to share with you this wonderful webinar that we have some amazing guest speakers on for today, titled Accelerating B2B Customer 360 AI and Automation, Value in Salesforce CRM, Data Cloud, and AppExchange. So before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items to share with you. All mics are off, as you can imagine. That's a good thing. If you have any questions, you'd like to share any comments, please use the chat box. And what we will do is at the very end of the webinar, we'll pause and we'll field those questions to our esteemed guests here. We will be recording this session, so for those who would like to play this back or would like to simply watch it, if they weren't able to join, they'll have that opportunity. And again, any questions and comments, please just leave them in the chat box and we will go from there. With that said, again, looking forward to a wonderful conversation. Thank you all for taking the time to join and welcome. And so let's begin. I'm going to turn it over to our speakers for an introduction, and we'll go from there. Alan, please.
All right, I'll start. Alan Dray. I'm a multi-cloud solution architect with the CSG Global Readiness Group. I've been with Salesforce for 12 years, really focused on data problems for our B2B customers. And I'm part of a team currently that's the Data Cloud Solution Architects, and I've been with them for almost 2 years. Gurpinder?
Thank you, Ellen. Hello, everyone. Gurpinder Dhillon, a VP and Business Segment Leader for Data Management at Dun & Bradstreet. My focus is helping customers with the sales and marketing related data management initiatives and helping them be successful with using internal and external third-party data in the context of sales and marketing business cases. Amit?
And my name is Mehmet Orun at PeerNova. I'm the head of product and data management subject matter expert. I have an 18-year history with Salesforce. Having been a customer, we extended Salesforce SFA with case management 2 years prior to Service Cloud. I was Salesforce's first head of data quality, worked on Data.com, which was a DMB partnership, led the data strategy practice, evolved into cross-cloud solutions. Alan and I have also known each other, shared many stories over years, and here to share with you the latest best practices. Very excited to be here.
All right, shall we move on?
The most popular slide.
Yes. Well, quick reminder, the Salesforce is a publicly traded company and customers should base their purchasing decisions on products and services that are currently available. All right, so let's get started. All right, first let's take a little time back in time. We're gonna present a couple of slides that we presented first in Dreamforce 2016. This is all before Flow and before Data Cloud, but they're still relevant. So B2B customers are complex. Without any effective understanding of that complexity, it becomes kind of impossible to really effectively engage with them. So let's look at these accounts and their related opportunities. Do we know if any of these accounts are duplicates or are incomplete? We can make some assumptions based on what we're seeing. Are they disconnected or are they really part of a larger organization? Once we answer those questions, we can answer some of the other questions for our customers. Where are all the orders for Salesforce? How do I ensure field service tech has the right details? What is my white space and my cross-sell opportunity? How do I create a personalized message if I don't know what they have? We all know that data is constantly changing, and we have incomplete data, we have inactive data, we have duplicates in our system. All of these things create financial impact for the company, productivity loss, and the potential for compliance risk issues. So let's leap forward now to the present, where we can now talk about accelerating our B2B customer 360 value. So here we have a practical guide on how to get started using generally available features and solutions. First, we want to understand the common B2B 360 challenges. Then we'll start with getting reliable data into our CRM, and then we'll go into building a data cloud POC to quantify the business benefits. And then ultimately, we want to productionalize this and expand really those benefits that we've identified. All in a matter of weeks. So during this session, our promise to you will be, you can apply our guidance today, given generally available features. You'll be able to accelerate your B2B 360 journey, identifying and tackling data challenges. You'll be able to address common complexities through trusted and reliable 360 views across the subsidiaries and business relationships. You'll be able to maximize your Data Cloud trial credit benefits with the most impactful records and fields across sources, insights, and to justify the investment. And ultimately reduce the implementation time to value and the risk associated with that implementation by reducing credit waste and really getting data fit for purpose at the end of this. All right, let's get started by understanding some common challenges and how you might tackle them. So B2B 360 is like everything else. It's about knowing and using relationships across your marketing, sales, service, and every other aspect of doing business. Start with knowing how the locations we do business with may relate to a larger entity, and moving to understand how those locations may act and the roles that they're playing when we're interacting with them. This allows us to act appropriately with those locations and present the right products and services for the role they're playing at the time that we're actually interacting. Today, we can match an account name into the same location to each other. However, there are other combinations when string-based matching is not enough. What are the other locations that may need distinct records associated with them? What if a business is moved or has multiple locations? What about subsidiaries with whom we have distinct contracts? And what about those entities that we acquired and they no longer have independent businesses? Well, we're going to discuss how enrichment solution providers such as Dun & Bradstreet can help us tackle these challenges, because name plus address, names at addresses, are not sufficient. We need to be mindful of the security concerns that we might have in this process. If we have an inside sales team, what can those inside salespeople see? If we have a partner sales team, what can they see? And our customer support reps, we believe they should probably see about everything so they can really satisfy and the support for our customers. And we have different business relationships of interest in different parts of the organization. Who should see customers and who should see partners? And who should see any of the other 360 business relationships that drive our business? More often than not, customers' data is distributed across data sources, having different data models and having different data classifications. Across the instances that we're dealing with today, how do I achieve a consistent understanding across those instances? How do I maintain that depth of understanding given some of the variables and the attributes and the names and the values? And how do I avoid bad assumptions as it relates to that data across those two different instances that ultimately have a different context? And speaking of relying on data, we can answer some of these questions by answering these questions. Do I have the right account records? How good is my transactional data? And do I have unnecessary fields or records? Now here you see some of the steps within the steps that we're going to perform. So we're looking at starting the B2B 360 with reliable CRM data by doing a matching linking in order to create an account hierarchy, recognize those larger entities, assessing our org data quality, and identifying representative data as a guide to our Data Cloud proof of concept. So let's now see how we can achieve this by getting reliable data. All right, as we said, a B2B 360 is about account relationships. And our best practice that we're going to go over right now is to use reference data based matching in order to get some of that understanding of the data. All right, let's swap over here to our demo. So one of the first things that I really wanted to show you in the demo was that we have a number of installed packages. In this case, they're showing 3, but 2 of the primary ones that we're going to talk about today is our D&B Connect package, which is Dun & Bradstreet package, AppExchange package inside of Salesforce that securely sends and matches things over our data, our account data, our lead data over to D&B and enriches it and brings it back. The other package we'll have and we'll go over will be the Cuneiform for CRM package, AppExchange package by PeerNova. So we'll delve into both of those packages as we go through this. So first, I want to cover the D&B Connect package and the configuration on that. Gurpinder actually go a little bit deeper on it once we're finished with the demo here. But the D&B Connect package uses projects to be able to create how I'm going to match my data and how I'm going to match it against different sources. So I have a couple of projects here, and you can see I've actually configured this, and it shows me some of the macro level information associated with the data that it has matched and enriched in my current instance. So I'll see that macro information, but really I want to focus on how I will be able to, which data sources I'm going to deal with. So in this particular project, I'm going to be dealing with the account data in my second instance that we're dealing with in this demo. So I'm going to refresh that data on a regular cadence. So meaning go out and refresh the data that's been matched. I'm going to retry unmatched records on a regular cadence. And one of the key features here is a transactional matching. Any of the new data coming in is able to be matched and enriched as it comes into the system, whether that be from integrations or whether that be from a user actually creating that particular data. And let's drill a little bit deeper on the matching capabilities that we have. So the company match criteria that I have, I can specify which attributes are actually going to be used. So if I have a DUNS number, I can actually use that DUNS number and it will match directly against that DUNS. Or in most cases, what I'm going to have is I'm going to have company information. So I'm going to have a name, an address, and a phone number that it can use to go out and execute the match. Now I'll select which attributes are going to be the best to be used based on some of the profiling information that we're going to see later on when Mehmet talks to us about Cuneiform for CRM. But D&B takes this data, securely sends it over through their APIs to execute a match, and then brings back the enriched data associated with the matches that it's going to execute. So there's a couple of other things you can do. A national ID, if you want to match, that'll be similar to a DUNS number. And to enrich the matching even more, you can add a website and email potentially to those things. Let's take a quick drill into the match criteria itself. So I've created a global rule here. You can create match rules that are country specific, and it will execute those based on the country that's provided from the account and the data that should be sliding into match. Now, I've got a global rule, so it's doing every country the same. I've got a medium confidence level here of a 6. Normally in a production instance where you're accepting some of these things, you might want to raise that up a little bit, but I'm really interested in seeing what my matches that I'm going to get, and I'll let data stewards figure out the rest, figure out which ones are good matches or not. I can also configure this with a match quality string. As you can see, it's all B's right now because I've been kind of lazy and I've just said similar on all of these things. But if I want to switch it over to an exact, it'll change it to an A, and it'll match a little bit differently as far as the name is concerned. Or I can actually create that match string on its own. I can specify the A, B's, Z's, and F's that I would actually use within my match string, and that's the match string that it would use. Another really interesting aspect of this is that I can choose which records I want to include to come back. So in this particular case, I've said everything because I really want to have all of my data matched as much as I can, and then my business process will figure out the rest. Here you can say, if I'm only doing business with headquarters, maybe I'll only match to headquarters records, and anything not matched to D&B, I'm going to pretty much not allow opportunities to be created against or something like that. Similar with out of business records, where these out of business records may be things I don't want to allow somebody to place an opportunity against because it's been indicated as it's really not in business. So why would I be doing that? All right, and let's take it one step further. Now, when I enrich the accounts, what I'm talking about is taking the D&B data that comes back and applying it to my account object inside of Salesforce, which really is where normally my business processes, my flows, my automations, all of those things would execute against the account object. Now, there's a whole D&B object that we're going to show you in a minute here that has all of the enrichment data in there that I can react against as well on the system. But these are the key fields on the account that I'm going to be doing. So I have company information, a lot of the company data that I would actually apply to. And then I have my hierarchy information and where I might apply that and put that on the account. So I've created custom fields to hold the domestic ultimate, the global ultimate, the parents, all of those types of things. And I've also said only populate those fields when they're actually blank, and don't change them if they're not, because I'll really want to do the comparison myself at some point. So I've now gone through, I've created my matches, I've enriched my accounts. And here I can begin to see in the initial, before I do my enrichment, I've got my accounts, I'm showing them, I've got just very few fields that I have accessible to me that are going to help me. But then as I enrich my accounts, I now begin to see how I've got the DUNS numbers, all of the hierarchy information, a lot of other information that I've brought in and been able to enrich the account. And a lot of these things like employee size, annual revenue, SIC codes, those are all things that we would normally use, say, in territory management and being able to align my territories against. My operating status, which you can see I've got 3 records here that are indicating out of business. And as we said, we really may have a business process that would not allow opportunities to be created against those. And let's take a quick look now at what we've been able to do with this enriched data as far as now Data Cloud is concerned. We'll go deeper into Data Cloud a little bit later on. But here we can see the unified account and the details. And here you can see I've got multiple party identifiers. I also have multiple addresses here for the unified account. So as it comes out of Data Cloud. And then I have my details about this account. And you can see some of the D&B enriched data coming over into the account. The employee sizes, the annual revenue, some of the hierarchy information in the details. But what I've been able to do with the data coming through Data Cloud from both of these instances, I've now been able to construct a unified hierarchy that now brings in all of my data into that hierarchy from both of the instances that I've brought in through Data Cloud and brought together. So you can see the local records and the non-local. So non-local means they're not for this particular instance, they're not local to this instance, but they are accessible to me and I can see what's available for them. And you can see how this hierarchy actually expands as we bring in more data, as we work with the D&B, and it's all enriched as far as the hierarchy is concerned. But also we can see related cases that are local, cases that are part of the unified account, cases that are part of our global ultimate. So it expands as we start growing, we start adding things from a global ultimate, from a unified account. So from a services perspective, I can see cases. And from a sales perspective and others, I can also see the opportunities. Here you can see a single opportunity local, but then I have 3 opportunities that are on a part of the unified account, where at least one of them is a local because I can link to them and I can go visit and view that one. And I can see all of the total value associated with it. And then finally, I have the global ultimate, where I can now see, because I brought all of this data together underneath that umbrella of the enriched data with the global ultimate, I can see that data as well. All right, and I wanted to show very quickly the D&B data. Now, I selected a lot of data when I came through here out of the data blocks that were available to me from D&B. So there's a lot of data in here, but you can see how rich it can be for you to be able to do a lot of different things associated with that enriched data. All right, I'm done. Okay, so let's go to the next slide here. And okay, so talk about more. I'll bring in for one of our AppExchange partners, Guprinda from D&B, to talk about the D&B data for facilitating the use of reference data through this enrichment process.
Thank you, Ellen. That was a great demo. So as
Sure.
Ellen mentioned, business data is very complex and string matching often isn't enough, which is why the benefit and the value that D&B brings to the table is fully embedded right into the CRM when you're using it. And one of the key value propositions that we provide or bring to the table for the customers is that we have been in the business of collecting, matching, and maintaining the data that our customers have come to rely heavily on. We follow a process where we go through thousands of sources on a daily basis to collect information. Some of those are public sources, some of those are very private proprietary data sources, and some of those are really the customers themselves that help us validate the information that we store in our data cloud. So what we do is when a data source comes in, we go through a process called Duns Right process, which brings the data sources together and creates a Dunsified number, which allows us to ensure that this is a unique record sitting in our database. Now, if I share with you some of the stats, why this is very, very important is, one, based on research, from multiple sources like Gartner, 70% of CRM data decays annually. So if you have a customer or a Salesforce which is looking at data in a CRM, typically they're going to be looking at 70% of it, which is already out of sync or out of order, or it's incomplete. 91% of that is incomplete. So it's missing important information that your sales team might need to correctly identify a customer or a prospect that they want to go after within a given opportunity. So how do we do that? If we go to the next slide, I'll share with you very briefly. It's a very comprehensive process that we follow, but I'll be very brief given the time that we have. As I mentioned, we follow this process called Done's Right. This is a trademark process. It uses API-powered matching engine, which has been enhanced and maintained over the last 180 plus years. And what it does is it goes through identifying a company, whether it is a unique company or whether it is a duplicate. The same process is applied when you are creating a reference universe for the customer. And the same process is also applied when, as Alan showed you in the demo, when you have a record or an org or a lead coming from CRM in real time as a transaction or as a batch, when that information is passed over to DNB through the API, it goes through this process. And the process basically is it goes through and it identifies, is this the right name? It'll go through the current name in our database, but it also goes through other variations of that name, such as doing business as, right, which could be different than the actual name of an organization. It would also go through formal addresses or business names and addresses of that organization so we can correctly identify and match to that. Once it goes through all that iteration, it utilizes things like meaning, location, spelling, language, and context to then further identify and use tie-breaking algorithms to enhance the match experience that comes out of it. And we don't stop there. Once we do that, then we give you confidence as a customer, because ultimately you have to make the decision as a customer whether you want to accept or reject that match that DNB has provided back. And when we do that through things like confidence code, we give you confidence code to identify this is how confident DNB algorithm is with the match. If we want to go further down, we will also give you information such as match grade string that Alan showed you how to configure in DNB Connect, which basically tells you, did we do a match on business name? How confident are we with that versus the street address versus the telephone versus the industry and the density of that business. And then even further, some people like to drill further down and understand the nitty-gritty as to what is the data that was used in matching? Is it the actual name or is it an alternative name? Is it formal name? So that level of detail is also shared as a part of this match experience that we provide. Next, please. Once we do that, we assign a DUNS number to that record, as you saw. Then the next part comes in, which is all about relationships. Again, in the business context, relationships matter, especially in the sales and marketing context. You want to understand if your customer is linked to other customers within your CRM. You also want to understand if the company that you're doing business with, it has any other subsidiaries, other locations that could also be your potential customer. But furthermore, you also want to understand holistically what kind of revenue are you generating from this family in your CRM. If you are dealing with multiple family members in a hierarchy, you could also identify the exposure that it creates for you as an organization. So what we do is we create this linkage, which reflects the hierarchical relationship between different entities within the corporate family. We also look at globally, starting at the global level, we look at who is the parent globally, and then we go down into the domestic level, so such as in the US, who is the parent within the US country, and then we also go down into further global other countries, so we can give you the global, domestic, and then different locations and subsidiaries, so that you can quickly identify within your CRM system how all of this is related and linked together. Next, please. And then finally, when it comes to enriching and give you the information that you need to make important business decisions, you have access to over thousands of attributes available within our data cloud. Through this API native integration right into the Salesforce CRM system, you have access to this, as Alan alluded to. You can get basic information on a company entity resolution, like the level of confidence and the insight. You can also get financial information. You can get industry information such as the SIC, the revenue that is generated by this organization. You can also get third-party risk insights to identify exposure and some of the other signals like intent. Are they looking to buy CRM systems or something like that you could then position to them. So all this is available right there within the application on your fingertips. Next.
All right. Thanks, Rupinder. All right, let's continue getting reliable CRM data by assessing the org reliability, identify issues, and clean up, basic impacts. All right, for this, we're going to bring in our other AppExchange partner, Mehmet from Paranova, to walk us through the cuneiform for CRM and how it can help us with reliable data for our CRM.
Thanks, Alan. Look, we are halfway through the presentation right now. I want to acknowledge that we are providing a lot of information. So don't worry, not only this will be recorded, at the end, we are going to tell you about 3 deeper dive webinars we are going to have on each of these points. Now, to build on the story, I'm happy to share with you our product uniform for CRM that will help you perform the fastest and most comprehensive assessment in your CRM org without the data ever leaving your organization or security concerns. The reason data assessment is important is once you have matched and enriched your records, you need to ask the question, do I have the right data? And when I can observe data reliability patterns, know what kind of impact it may have in your organization, in your usability, business outcomes, and how it may impact every downstream implementation, whether it is analytics, data cloud implementations, and so forth. And with the right data assessment solution, you can look at your field data quality as well as record data quality, identifying even missing records in your org, which is what we're going to look at today. We are talking about a B2B use case. So the first object we are going to start with is an account. And of course, account object can have multiple record types. We are going to focus on customer since that is where our revenue comes from. When we look at the profiling summaries, and one of the items that you will first see is the total number of records and total empty fields. Having worked with quite a few customers, what we are observing consistently is approximately 20% of all custom fields have not been used in the past 3 years. This is true especially in older orgs, and unused fields often impact and reduce usability. It reduces organizational agility. And when you see 400 fields as opposed to 300 used fields, it may also impact the amount of work you need to do anytime you're doing any implementation. The idea of an unused field is not just based on whether it is filled or not, however. We also want to look at the field details and look at details such as how many distinct values does it have? If a field has only one distinct value, is it really being used? Because it always has the same content. We look at what percentage of the time a field has the default value if a default value was configured. Again, this leads to data reliability. And then looking at different levels of detail, we can look at overall data quality in the application. Since if the data quality is not good in the CRM solution, it impacts sales, service, other customer engagement effectiveness in Salesforce CRM, and those data challenges will carry forward to downstream solutions such as Data Cloud as well. Let's look at a few of these fields to talk about what you should look for and what you can do about them. Let's start with a simple example, industry, which is a standard field. End users typically do not want to research and enter information, especially if the pick lists are long. What we see here is industry fields for customer records were populated about 22% of the time, which frankly is not a surprise. Now, Ellen was sharing with you some of the enrichment data you can get from DNB, and one of those enrichment fields is industry. It is a 4-digit SIC code. The benefit of this is when you match your account records to a third-party source, you're going to see a much higher rate of data population because companies like DNB are going to collect it, and then you can use this to increase the level of content you have where it matters. Now looking at SIC codes, I'm seeing that I do have some records, a little over 1% of my records are holding companies. I also see that 5% of my records or close to it says non-classified establishments. I know from having worked with B2B data for a long time that anytime I see a holding company or non-classified establishment, that's probably not a legitimate account record. So now I want to look at what other insights I can leverage in order to take advantage of DMB offerings and data quality insights. Beyond the SIC description, I want to look at operating status. During the match setup example, Alan highlighted that he wants to not just look at active records, he wants to know whenever an existing account in our org may say out of business, not reachable. I see that 11% of all of my accounts, all of my customer accounts in my org are marked out of business. If my org is 7 or 10 years old, this is not going to be uncommon. I am seeing a note that says my screen is frozen.
It has changed since, Mehmet.
Okay. Do you see operating status?
Most frequent values, out of business, yes.
Great. Thank you. So what can we do with these type of insights? Well, a tried and true Salesforce approach is creating formula fields in order to look at data quality. What has been challenging historically is what to put in those formula fields in order to assess account data quality or any data quality for that matter. Because we are profiling our object and we can identify the fields that matter, in this case, I'm choosing to use operating status, the family tree role, whether a dance number had come back or not, in order to come up with a data quality score. And then I can use this formula field in conjunction with my business transaction insights, and I can say which of my account records have open or closed won opportunities where the account record quality is at risk. If you're a Salesforce admin or architect, you know that you can easily create rollups fields on opportunities, and our formula field is powering this view. What I can do about this now is I have an open opportunity. I'm going to prioritize that over closed won opportunities. I'm going to come into that record, and I see that in fact it is out of business. I had not been paying attention to this information. I'm going to come in and I'm going to choose to get another record from Dun & Bradstreet that is in fact not out of business, and using this information I can improve my overall account data quality. Beyond record quality, we also need to be mindful of intentional and unintentional duplicates. Definition of an intentional duplicate is I have representation for the same entity across record types, customers, partners, competitors. It's an unintentional duplicate if I have multiple records in the same type when transactions may be lost. I can use the same profiling insights, in this case using DUNS number, and catch conditions standard duplicate management tools may never catch because they are going to focus on the value in a string, Salesforce, Salesforce Inc., Salesforce.inc, as opposed to there were multiple subsidiaries or there was a previous address, previously known name. So quickly I can identify what are my duplicate records, and this gives me a sense of overall health. The good news with the approach Ellen is sharing with you is historically we try to merge account records whenever we had unintentional duplicates. It can be time consuming, costly, many organizations are risk averse. Instead, what we recommend is create a unified view using these identifiers and related list views with an external ID. That way you're going to show your end users the complete picture, and you can keep cleaning up the data behind the scenes if and when needed. Now, DUNS numbers are about identifying unique locations of businesses. What we want to do for a 360 understanding is know how many times we are interacting with the same broader entity. Now, as we start pivoting from CRM data health to guiding a data cloud POC, you want to know how many disconnected account records there may be in just your primary CRM org. And using these insights, you would typically want to take the top 10 to 25 global ultimate dance numbers and see where else these global ultimate dance shows up in your other CRM orgs, in your ERP or other systems, in order to use the insight to guide that first POC. And then you would use those patterns to bring it into production. B2B 360, of course, is not just about accounts. It is also about understanding the related transactions. One of our recommendations is whenever you're dealing with transactional data, identify the fields that matter by when successful business outcomes were achieved. You may have 500 custom fields in your opportunity object. Look at what fields are consistently being filled in a reliable way in most recent times when the opportunities are closed won, and then using these insights, focus on what data you would want to bring together, because clearly these are the fields that are showing up most often. And then also look at how those fields are being configured when they are impactful. When it comes to opportunity data, the field that is my favorite to look at is stage, because it indicates overall pipeline health. And when we are looking at this information, we see that, let's look at instead of closed won, all record opportunities. I see that I have 6 different stages where transactions are following through, or 4 open stages. Now, the interesting observation I am making is I see fewer prospecting than negotiation. This is an inverted funnel. This means I have missing transactional records in my system also. By making these observations through data assessment, I can now talk to my revenue ops or sales ops team so we can improve overall usability. All of these insights are available across the objects for any scenario you may set up with a well-architected profiling tool, so you can ensure that your CRM solution is healthy, data quality issues are being addressed based on business impact, and you're going to be able to use higher quality data to feed into Data Cloud to power your AI, automation, analytics initiatives. Now that was the CRM health demo in about 8 minutes. Now let's pivot to using such insights in order to guide the most effective, fastest data cloud proof of concept possible, where we are going to see business benefits. If you're dealing with, the rule of thumb is do not have more than 3 sources and do not have more than 3 to 5 objects per source. For B2B, accounts on opportunities is the most indicative of the lost business value. If you can solve it for this, you can bring in context leads cases very, very easily. Identify the most impactful fields using the profile example that I just showed you. Look at the fields most populated with reliable data when business objectives are met, and then focus on the most impactful records. One of the reasons this is important is not only you want to spend the least amount of time possible showing business value from your POC, you also want to be a judicious steward of those free trial credits Salesforce is offering to any enterprise edition customer and above in order to take advantage of Data Cloud and see what it can do. With that, Alan, would you go over what customers can get with those free credits?
Certainly, it's all well documented out there, and we know as of Dreamforce 23 this year, that it was announced that customers do have a free account for Data Cloud included, enterprise and above. And there are some limits though. So the kind of the methods we are outlining and amendments outlining for streamlining the set of data to effectively use those limits is really important. And if we could go to the next screen, Mehmet. So these usage types that we have in here, most of them are models that are on per million row limits. So using some of the practical advice that we have and that we're providing here, we can manage within some of those things, making sure that, and when we do a brief demo on Data Cloud, you'll see that we're using transformations, we're using, data queries, those types of things to be able to drive some of this. So again, effectively taking advantage and sampling and making sure you're bringing in the right rows will be very important to the effective usage of these things.
So the general idea is if you can put in place the right design and avoid reprocessing your identity resolution or using an unnecessary 100,000 credits, you would absolutely want to do that. So let's quickly go over one use case on data profiling in Data Cloud, why it is important, before I turn it back over to Alan, who's going to talk to you about how to tie things together back to Salesforce CRM. In this example, let's pretend we have two orgs, mostly standard fields. They both have name, they both have stage. What you're seeing is though the data is not necessarily the same. We see segment equals enterprise in one. We have a customer type field instead of segment that says EBU in the other. Are these the same or not? We don't know. They both have the type field. One says new business, the other says new customer. If we both mapped type fields from the sources to the same target, we actually would not get consistent information. And catching these early before data modeling, mapping, and identity resolution is incredibly important. The reason we have created Cuneiform for Data Cloud is while Data Cloud is incredibly powerful to bring data from any data source and standardize that data source schema as text, numbered, date, time fields, and it allows you to have a preview of what data is stored in any of those objects. Understanding the pattern, field rates, field value frequencies is something that is still being done through reports, through Tableau, which we have identified can take on average 4 weeks of interviews and research when we interviewed certified data cloud consultants. What we believe can be done instead is the ability to profile any DLO, just like you could with CRM using the Cuneiform for Data Cloud platform, and using these profiling insights, be able to discover when the same values are showing up under different fields in semantically similar DLOs. What you see in this example is segments and customer type fields both seem to share nonprofit and government values. If I identify the same field on related DLOs have similar values, I would want to see what else is there and is this something I am going to want to map. The reason this matters is when you're doing a data model decision. In one example, we had education. In the other source, we discovered there was K through 12 and higher ed. If you do not map these at all, we will now have two different fields with inconsistent data. If we overmerge them, we are going to use a level of detail. By understanding what the data content is, we can decide to have a single generalized fields or two different fields where granularity may be maintained. Once we know what our data model is, we can guide data governance and data standardization decisions, and we would know exactly how often a given value has been used in what source, so that is going to allow us to do that prioritization decisions. And of course, when we know our source shape and when we know what the target needs to look like, we can inform data mapping. The same profiling principles also significantly improve the reliability of identity resolution and matching by identifying likely fake contact points or identifiers that show up disproportionately. You should absolutely remove from your match process as part of your data transformation logic. With that, Alan, as my Data Cloud implementation architect, I hope that I have given you enough information for you to bring all these insights together and show how we can deliver value in CRM.
Well, I hope so too, Mehmet. So let me take over again, and I can hopefully bring us into our demo of what we actually did with Data Cloud. So in the cases, we had two different instances of Salesforce of CRM that we were bringing together. So let's start with the data streams that we had. So we have obviously the two pieces of accounts from the two different sources. And we have cases and opportunities, as you saw before. We're really not going to process the leads. It was just a data stream we were testing with. So we have those 7 data streams, 6 of which we'll actually take advantage of. So in those data streams, we now have a set of DLOs, a set of data lake objects that are coming in. You'll notice that there are sets of data lake objects that are not part of the data stream or attached to the data stream. Those are objects that I'm going to create transformations in order to create the records that we need to process for the party identifiers, for the addresses, for the phone numbers. And we'll take a quick look at those transformations coming up. So I'm going to now take a look at our data model objects. And what's cool about this view of the data model objects is you can see exactly what I was talking about. We have our case data streams and our opportunity data streams that I've mapped directly to the data model objects for case and opportunity. While the others are not mapped directly to the data streams, they're actually mapped to the data lake objects that were created as custom objects that are going to map more directly to the contact points after the transformations that we run. So going into the transformations, we have 2 transformations, a transformation for each of the data sources that we're processing. And then each transformation will look very similar because what I'm doing is I'm breaking up the account. So the standard account object, we all know, has multiple addresses on it, multiple phone numbers. It will hold, as I showed you in the original demo, the multiple identifiers of the global ultimate, the domestic ultimate, and the DUNS number itself. So in the transformation, I'm able to do my filtering to say I really only want good accounts, and I'll set my criteria for that, and it's going to be based on some of the things that Mehmet showed you. So the profiling that we did is really going to allow us to reduce the set of records that are going to be coming in that we're going to be having in our IR and our other actions that we're going to take inside of Data Cloud. And then I have my transformations that I'll create identifiers for it. I'll create my business phone, my fax phone, my billing addresses so that I can output them to the DLOs that I created that are really more directly aligned with the standard model objects that are inside of Data Cloud. But one of the most important things that I do, especially in our B2B scenario, are these identifiers. So I have my site party identifier, which is in essence the DUNS number that's going to be one of the main drivers of our identity resolution. But I'm also creating a global ultimate party identifier, and I can use that or other modes of querying the data to give you what I showed you as far as the opportunity and the case view at the global ultimate level. So those are the transforms that we're running. Now I wanted to quickly show the mapping. And as you can see from an account, which is one of the primary objects and the parent objects of all of these, I do map the global ultimate, I do map the headquarters, the parent, all of those things in there so that I can get kind of a reconciled view through the IR process on the data that I'm bringing over from my DLOs, my custom DLOs, which really are more aligned to the standard account object than say the full-blown account object, seeing it here, and the party identifier, very simple object, very simple DLO, being able to map almost directly to it, giving me my party identification types, party identification names. So, quite interesting stuff to be able to work with in identity resolution, where I've created 2 identity resolution rule sets. The primary one that I'm going to be using, name, address, phone number, and DUNS number, where I've got, it's showing right here, I have a consolidation rate of about 41% on the data that I brought in across those 2 instances. But I've also kind of created one on the global ultimate that I could potentially use in some of the queries that I may want to be, what is my global ultimate view going to look like? And if we drill down really quick into the identity resolution part of this, you can see I've created a match rule that is dealing with the business name, the normalized address, the phone number, or the account identifier, which is the site ID, and so that I can bring all of these things together. And that's why I've been able to achieve a fairly reasonable consolidation rate of 41% consolidation across all of those records in the identity resolution part of this whole thing. So that's very quick, and it really came out in all of the views that you were able to see that we were able to get through before, where we have our related opportunities, we have our unified account. We can now see all of this data together, and it's being queried here because I've been able to bring all of that data that way into the data cloud. Let's go back to our presentation here. All right, so we've gone through our POC. Now we can make the business case. We can implement the POC scenarios with all of the data, all of the profiling that we did, and we can expand those use cases and data sources to create more of a production orientation. So once I proved it out with the POC, I now can productionize the scenarios. And going back to the promise that we're hopefully we've delivered is that we've used the generally available features here to be able to drive the demos that we've done and the POC that we've done. We've identified and tackled some of the data challenges so that we can actually do the transformations, have the right data coming in with a trusted and reliable 360 that we've got with the enriched data and we've been able to generate with the most impactful records and fields across these sources. And we really believe we've been able to reduce the implementation and time to value by reducing the credit waste that we might actually have otherwise. So we've done our production orientation, and all of the recommendations bring the POC kind of sources and scenarios to production. Basically allows us to build all of these things out. So Naveed, do you want to close us out here?
Sounds great. Thank you, gentlemen. I know it was a lot of information shared today. So for those of you who are listening in and just wondering how much there was to absorb here, fret not. This will all be available in additional webinars. And of course, as you can see on your screen, we will provide this as a video recording as well. So please stay tuned. I will email this out as soon as it's available. But you can see details about Uniform for CRM and Data Cloud, along with some of the other features that you saw from Salesforce and D&B today in appropriate places. You can find all of those details again in this slide. So as I mentioned, there will be additional webinars that we will host. So we will follow up with emails with you, and this will carry us through this journey one step at a time. And again, I know we're almost out of time, so if there are any questions that you'd like to share, please take a moment and email us at marketing@peernova.com, and we'll certainly field that appropriately and go from there. But before I let you all go, I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank our wonderful speakers today. Thank you for this incredible walkthrough, and thank you for all the listeners who took the time to join in, and really looking forward to seeing you all again, and happy, wonderful holidays ahead this month, and we'll see you soon.